this is Esther with Discover Your Origins. And part of my research project on my brickwall ancestor, Darthula Ross, I identified Colby Ross as a potential father. So I just wanted to share some of the research I've done on Colby Ross. This is my ancestry page for him, and I have found several records, and I'll show those here in a minute. Let me go to the article I've written. So I asked the question, is Colby Ross the father of Darthula Ross? And I still haven't completely answered that question. And what I first started doing is creating a timeline. And Colby Ross was born in North Carolina between 1800 and 1813. He was identified as being in Franklin, Tennessee in 1830. And in 1830, the census for Tennessee pretty much takes up the entire middle part of the state, because he's found in DeKalb County, 1840, which was a county that was formed from Franklin County, about that time. So he probably was in DeKalb County the whole time. I'll need to do a bit more research to find his exact location, but most likely that's where he was. In 1850, he moved to Limestone County, Alabama, and purchased property. His wife dies prior to 1868. She actually dies in 1859, and he remarries to Tabitha Reed, who had several children. Colby Ross sells some of his property. He pays taxes. He registers to vote. And he's found living with his stepson, Mike Reed, in 1880, and in 1882 he dies. So this is an image of the 1850 census with Colby Ross and his children. This isn't probably all of his children. The 1830 census and 1840 census seem to indicate that he had some additional children that we don't know their names of. They are missing in the 1850 census. Colby Ross's daughter, Cynthia Ann, marries Thomas Edgman in 1852, and the Edgmans were neighbors or in the proximity of the Eaton family, and Darthula marries William Jasper Eaton. And it's not really clear what happened to Colby Ross during the Civil War. We don't really have a lot of records of what happened to all of his children. So the big question is he the father? Could he be connected in some way? Initially we thought his daughter Parthena and Darthula could be the same person. We're not really certain that that's a possibility now, but it makes you question because they're both unusual names. Colby Ross's son, Thomas Ross, is the right age to have married Darthula, so he could have been a first husband for Darthula. This is a marriage certificate to Colby Ross and Tabitha Reed. They were married in Limestone County, and Christopher Myers, who's the Justice of the Peace, is the same Justice of the Peace that marries Darthula Ross and William Jasper Eaton. And you'll notice it also gives a location. It says that the wedding took place in the residence of Colby Ross. So this Justice of the Peace made notations on the exact location of where the marriage occurred in both instances. There needs to be a lot of additional research done on Colby Ross. There is a land patent case file for Colby Ross at the National Archives that needs to be ordered. It may or may not reveal any more family relationships, but it's possible it does. And so we need to find that, and also try to locate some additional land records for Colby Ross in Tennessee and in Limestone County, Alabama. So that's the additional research that needs to be done on Colby Ross. It would be nice to find a will, but I'm not sure that that document exists, because I think that Colby Ross likely lost his property during the Civil War, because he is not living or does not appear to be farming after the Civil War. So is Colby Ross the father of Darthula Ross? Not really sure. Most likely he's not. There's just no evidence suggesting that direction. But the last name of Ross really draws your attention, and there's a chance that there's a connection there, possibly with his son Thomas. So before I wrap up this video, I just want to share some of the historical records on Colby Ross. And so here I am on his ancestry page, and the 1880 census is the last census that Colby Ross is found in. And so if we look at it, it reveals a little bit more information about what's going on with Colby Ross at that time. So let me zoom in. Here's Colby Ross down here at the bottom, and he's in the household of his son Mike, stepson Mike C. Reed. He and his wife Tabitha are there. And if you look over, his wife is identified as a laborer, which she's 64 years old. So, that's interesting. And then Colby Ross is listed as paralyzed. He's 80 years old and paralyzed. And so I don't know if there was some kind of injury or accident that would have done this. Perhaps maybe it was a result of the Civil War. And so he's identified as disabled. It says that his parents were born in North Carolina and Georgia, and that he was born in North Carolina. So that's interesting because the other census records don't agree with that information there. Let me show you also a record where Colby Ross's property is. This is the plat map for the Huntsville Meridian, and it shows a lot of the early landowners. So Colby Ross is located up here in the corner, and he's like right on the border of this particular map. He's right here in the center, if you can see him right there. And he had approximately 80 acres and maybe some additional property. I'm not really sure, but he had those two little sections. Colby Ross had several different names, or his name was spelled different ways in the record. And so on Family Search, I've added those names. He was known as Colbert Ross, Coley Ross, and Colesbury Ross. I'm not sure what his original birth name would have been, but most of the records seem to indicate that it's Colby Ross. So that is who Colby Ross is and a possible parent for Darthula Ross. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more.